Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, it's recording. That's what it says, at least.
Yep, exactly. Well, good afternoon, brothers. It's truly my honor and privilege today to interview one of the stalwarts of Omega. Brother Greer has had an impact on the international level here in the second district. And selfishly, I'm proud to say he was initiated in Gamma chapter in spring of 1967. So without further ado, we're going to open it up. Just want to pick Brother Greer's brain, and we're going to have a good time here. So Brother Greer, thanks for taking this time for allowing us to conduct this interview.
Okay. Where do you want me to start?
Okay. Well,
okay.
I know you came to Boston in the mid-1960s, and that had to be a very traumatic time, a lot going on in the country. What was that experience like, and what drew you to the Brothers of Omega?
Well, excuse me, can you cut that down, that music? Okay. So let me give you a little background. When I went to, first of all, when I was in high school, I was one of the 6 students to integrate public high schools in the state of Florida. Okay. And so basically, up until 9th grade, I never had a white classmate. And then after that, I never had a black classmate.
That's not surprising in Boston.
Yeah. I was in high school, and the 4 years I was in college. I went to Lowell Tech, which is now UMass Lowell, and I was the only black in my graduating class of 1969, not in my department, but the entire school.
Wow.
So as you can imagine, there was not a black community in Lowell. I think it was a block of black people at that time, and there were maybe 16 students, maybe 20 by the time I graduated. Okay. I had a roommate. He was from South Carolina, and we used to go down to Harvard, play basketball during the weekends. And I met a guy named John Potts. John Potts was actually technically made in Gamma chapter, but he was actually made at a conclave by his father, who was Grand Basileus.
Wow. Okay.
Didn't actually pledge. In other words, he was truly an instant Q.
Okay.
But a great brother. Okay. Right. And we talked about Omega. And strangely enough, I had 2 brothers that were Omegas. But they never said anything to me about Omega. Okay. They came home from college. They're 10, 11 years older than me. All I saw was these brands on their chest,
right,
and arms. So, but really didn't ring a bell on me. But I went home for Christmas, and the Deltas used to have a Panhellenic ball, and they would sing the sweetheart songs of all the different Greek-led organizations. And then when everybody stood up, I looked around, and when the Omega's sweetheart song was sung, it was everybody I knew, coaches, principals, instructors, all of those people were Omegas.
Right.
Okay. And then now back to John Potts. So I asked Potts about Omega, and he said that I missed the smoker, but he could arrange an interview for me.
Okay.
And he arranged an interview. And at that time, I didn't have a car, of course. I was a poor student. Right. I had to take the train from Lowell to Boston.
Wow, that's a hike.
Yeah. And I went, it was during the week, and I was in a bay window in one of those brownstones off of Boylston Street near Northeastern. And I had an interview. It was the worst interview I ever had in my life. Only thing I remember was the first question was manhood, scholarship, perseverance, uplift, expound.
Right.
Okay. And I was 18 years old. So I just felt bad. And it was a long train ride back to Lowell.
Right.
And about 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail saying the gods of Omega summons you to the quadrangle of Northeastern University. Okay. And
Right.
it says, you should have an envelope with $3 and a white handkerchief. Okay. And of course, I get there and they said stand at least 6 feet apart of the people who are there with you. And we were standing there. It was a cold day in Boston. And the $3 was for your Lampado's pen
Okay.
and your lamp manual.
Manual.
Right. And so I knew none of the other guys. Okay. I was just there. And of course, the handkerchief was to blindfold you. And the $3, like I said, was for your pen and your manual.
Manual. Right.
It was 12 of us, I think it was. Yeah, 12. 4 African guys, and the rest were African Americans.
Okay.
3 of them quit the first day. They gave us the cardinal principles, and they said, "This is it. They're gone."
Enough.
They left. Okay. So then, and I got a chance to meet these guys. One was from BU, most of them were from Northeastern. One from MIT. One of the African guys who stayed was from MIT. Probably the most brilliant individual I've ever met, known in my life.
Wow.
He was an aeronautical scientist. And so during those 14 weeks, I went back and forth to Boston. And, that's why I had such value for the Lampados Club, because what it did was it developed a closeness and developed leadership abilities. Your secretary was the guy that eventually came to KRS of the chapter.
Right.
I became bossless. And I guess that's when you really get the feeling of brotherhood.
Right.
Because you and your line brothers get very close during those period of time.
Right.
And one of my line brothers used to say, he was the one from Ghana at MIT. He would always say to me, "If these brothers love us so much, why do they treat us so badly?"
There's a song about that.
And he would often say that,
Right.
So, so you really get the essence of friendship.
Absolutely.
I would stay with one of my line brothers from Northeastern, and he would go through the line and eat, and then he'd give me his meal card, and I'd go through the line, and we didn't even look alike. And we would often say, "Is it that these white people just don't know the difference, or they're too scared to say anything about it?" Because this was during the African Revolution, African American Revolution, sort of, the Black Power movement.
Right.
And so there was 9 of us left. 2 guys missed their average. One guy missed his average by 100th of a point, Jimmy Turner. And
Wow.
the DR wouldn't round it off. So he didn't go over with us. And the other guy never went over. So it ended up with 7.
Right.
I think during that period of time, when you look at our motto, friendship is essential to the soul, it really is a wonderful motto.
Right.
Because first of all, the soul is the essence of your being, and when you see the kind of friendships that developed that last forever.
Correct.
One of the questions was, are you still in contact with the people that you pledged with, the people that were in your original chapter. And so that's where it all started.
Gotcha. Okay.
In Gamma chapter. And after I pledged, two other brothers from Lowell pledged. So it was three of us on campus out of the 12 black men on campus,
On
three of them were
campus.
Omegas. Yeah. And but the reason I pledged was several things. One, the guys in Boston who were Omegas, they ran the town.
Right.
Or they ran not just the town, but they ran all of New England. You know, I mean, because they were some of them were presidents of the student body, some of them were presidents of the Black Students Union. Some of them, in those times, we were forming Black student unions.
Correct.
Most of the schools didn't have them, African American Students Associations. So, and these were the people. They were athletes. They were musicians, and so it was just a wonderful experience for me. It was my only social experience.
Gotcha.
Because I'm up in Lowell, no black people, no black social life. So Omega saved my life socially. I would have gone to college and had a tremendous educational experience, but no social life whatsoever.
Right.
And then I went from no social life to the most wonderful social life I could possibly have.
Right. And I think that happens a lot, Brother Greer, for us brothers who go to school in Boston. Even during the 80s when I was there, it was similar. If it wasn't for the fraternity, we would be lost in a lot of instances.
Exactly. And we were well respected by both male and female, especially female.
Right.
And because there were so many schools in Boston, what we did is we assigned brothers to certain schools to make sure that the ladies were invited to our social events.
Right.
Okay. And as a neophyte, they gave me the community college, Commonwealth Junior College, a couple of business schools. But then next year, they gave me Wellesley, Manuel Simmons, and Wheelock. So
you had a good selection there, brother.
Yeah, and I did well because we would have metrics about it. On the Sunday after the event, they would say, Brother Greer, you had 24 ladies to come to the dance from those schools because we had a signing book. Okay. And the first year, they made me chairman of special projects, which was everything other than it wasn't Achievement Week. It was
right.
So I was in charge of the smokers. So the first smoker we had was Omega Goes Playboy. And so we had ladies in bunny outfits, purple and gold bunny outfits. And then the second year or the second semester, it was Omega Loves Purple and Gold. And the girls came, the hostesses, in purple and gold outfits. And in the third year, it was Omega Goes International. And the hostesses had international costumes. So, and these beautiful ladies was a big influence a lot of times. So people decide, well, hey, this must be something that we want to do. We had a court, and the court would always have a dinner for the women who aspired to be on the court. And then they would have an interview 2 weeks later. And then we would have a sweethearts ball. In Boston, sweethearts ball was just absolutely one of the top ones in the country. Guys would come from DC and Baltimore, Philadelphia to our sweethearts ball. I mean, it was everything from English trumpets to swords and
wow,
strictly black tie.
Right.
Strictly black tie. And Gamma chapter is an unusual chapter, being in it, because you had a lot of graduate students. Of course, that's how Gamma got started, with 5 graduate students. So, of the 60 brothers, maybe 20 of them were people that were in graduate school that were not made at Gamma.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was a big influence because they were older, more mature, and it was a learning experience.
Right.
And then the last year, my senior year, I was bossless. And one of the unique things from a family standpoint, my other 2 brothers who are Omegas were also bossless at their undergraduate chapters.
Right.
One was bossless at Psi at Morehouse, and the other one was bossless at Roadside. He calls it Mighty Mighty Roadside. And so I don't know if there's other brother combinations in the frat, but I think that's unusual.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Greer, how did those early experiences prepare you for life? How did that shape who you are?
Okay, let me say this. It started, as far as leadership was concerned, when I was bossless at Gamma chapter. Because I learned so much about how to lead, how to manage. And when you're managing a group of guys, all that are well educated, some very brilliant, it takes a lot of ability to manage that kind of group of people.
Right.
And so when I came to DuPont, it was easy.
Right.
Managing a chapter is much more difficult in managing a group of people that work for you, know. And the experience in Boston was wonderful. I mean, I had a great college life, and it's largely because of Omega. I mean, 99.9% of my enjoyment of college was because of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. And that's why I felt I needed to give back, okay? Because it did so much for me that I felt that I hadn't contributed enough to give back to the organization. And when I graduated, I left Boston and came to Wilmington, Delaware, worked for a DuPont company. And I didn't know a soul, not one single person in Delaware.
Right.
Okay. And I contacted the bosses of the chapter, and those brothers took me around and helped me find a place to live, told me even where to get my hair cut.
Right.
Right. So it was a smooth transition. And the other thing about it is, and that's why I'm so close to New Up, is because, I came in the chapter and they put me to work right away. I was in the chapter, and the first year, I was dean of pledges, started the chapter down at the University of Delaware. And then I was KRS, which is the hardest job in the frat.
Absolutely.
And in those days, it was really hard because you didn't have computers. You had to write the notes and type them up on a typewriter.
Right.
And then, go get them copied at work and bring them to the meet.
Right.
And so at 23 years old, I became bossless of the chapter. But at 21 years old, I became the Carter rep.
Wow. Okay.
And that was kind of through a coincidence. I was at Richard Taylor's wedding. I was the best man in his wedding. And I gave a brother a ride back to his hotel. His name was Milton Johnson. And he happened to be the DR of the 2nd District.
Okay.
And he invited me to come to a district meeting, district not a district meeting, but a district council meeting. Okay. And he was calling for the reports, and the second corridor rep wasn't there, and he didn't have a report sent. So Milt Johnson fired the boy and appointed me as the corridor rep.
Okay, so you were elected.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of guy he was, you know.
Right.
No nonsense type thing. But those guys in Wilmington really just took me under their wings.
Right.
The first Final Four I ever went to was in 1970. And Dr. Woodrow Wilson, who was a dentist, took me to College Park. In those days, it wasn't a big festival like it is today.
Right.
It was the game on Saturday and the finals on Monday. And then he took me with him to Penn State, Ohio State game. You know, I got ready to check out. He says, what's my bill? He says, your bill's taken care of.
Right.
And that's the kind of, when you talk about brotherhood, I mean, that's the kind of brotherhood I experienced. And it made me want to give back to the frat, because it seems like I could never give back for what I got.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? It was just such a wonderful experience of giving. And, whenever I had a chance to give back, I tried to do that. I mean, just like they took me in. I remember one time I was home one summer and a brother came. He was actually from Fisk, but he was from Boston.
Okay.
And he called me from the airport. He says, Brother Greer, I don't know anybody in Miami. He had a teaching job in Miami. Mm-hmm. And I said, hold on a minute. And I asked my parents, I said, I got a frat brother who is in town. He doesn't have any place to live. And would it be okay if he could stay here at the house?
Right.
Because he don't mind sleeping on the pull-out couch for a couple of weeks. That's fine.
A crust in the corner.
Huh?
A crust in the corner.
Yeah. So, that was the way it was. You gave, but you always received. Right. When I was DR, the Grand Keeper of Records and Seal was C.D. Henry. And C.D. Henry was the athletic director at Grambling. And he left there and became the assistant Big Ten commissioner.
Wow.
Every year, he would give me his 4 tickets to the Final Four.
Right.
And these were great tickets. They were right at midcourt, usually about 12 rows up. And so I got a chance to see, many Final Fours.
Close and personal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Greer, question. You were running it. Are you the youngest DRs in the 2nd district? Are you the youngest one?
Definitely in the 2nd district. There's some thought that I might have been the youngest DR in the frat.
Okay. What was that whole experience like, being that young, being in such a esteemed position? Tell us about that a little bit.
I was first vice DR, and that happened because we actually were going to run Luther Burks, who was the bossless at New Epsilon before me.
Okay.
And Luther got an assignment to be on the board of the National Education Association. And he thought that might be too much to handle. So I was sort of like a substitute candidate. Okay. So then I was served as first vice. And then it came time for me to become district representative. And a lot of people felt that I was too young, being 26 years old. And it was an unbelievable election. And, the politics of Omega is the thing that I dislike most. I mean, it was the people that were managing my campaign were more political than I would have ever been. I mean,
Correct.
from the thing, I had a license plate, Greer, and they had it sitting right in front of the New York Hilton. You couldn't even get in the hotel unless you saw that. And that was
Right.
the first time they had buttons, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what year was that, Brother Greer?
That was 1975.
75. Okay.
And so, it was just a real unbelievable election. I mean, white people would get on the elevator and say, "Who is Greer?" I'd see this name all over the place, and banners, and and I ran against a guy from Pi Omega,
Okay.
and he was a doctor down in Pi Omega, and the first call I got after I got elected was from Walter Ampray.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And Walter called me up, and he was a campaign manager for the guy I ran against.
Right.
And he says, the election's over. Anything you want me to do, just let me know. And that was the beginning of just a very close relationship and friendship.
Right.
Walter's daughter and my daughter are best friends to this day.
Okay.
When he came to Philadelphia, he would stay at my house. I went to Baltimore. I would stay at his house. When his brother's children, Joe's children, came to Canada, they stayed in my place.
Right.
So it was everlasting friendship, just like it is with brothers that were in Gamma with me. When I go to the vineyard every summer, it's brothers that that I knew from Gamma. And so, when you talk about friendships and brotherhood, it really is the same. Um, um, I've seen places in the world as a result of my friendship with Adam McKee. Adam McKee is a veterinarian, and he is in the Tuskegee Veterinarians Alumni Association.
Okay.
And one year, he asked the brothers from the credit union to give a symposium on different topics. One guy talked about medicine. I talked about marketing. Another guy talked about business, those kind of things. And the first meeting we went to was in the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
Since then, I've been to Brazil, Colombia, Antigua, Puerto Rico, all these places as a result of my friendship with them and my involvement. Right. And so, that was, speaking of the credit union.
Right. That's where I was going next.
Okay. A group of about 12 of us got together, and it was the idea of Jim Elam.
Okay.
And Jim Elam was the guy that lent the fraternity $500,000 for our headquarters that we have down in Decatur. Okay. And because he says, we ought to have our own bank. And so we started the credit union, and there have been times when, the white folks tried to shut us down because they just didn't want to see, a group of Black men be successful at what we were doing.
Right.
But we persevered, like most Omega men do. And so I was blessed to be chairman of the credit union for several years. And I think the one thing that, a lot of things I put together, but the one thing that I think was most important was I put together this Loans for Life program.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was well before I became chairman of the Life Membership Foundation. Not even thinking about that, but just giving brothers the opportunity to be able to borrow at that time. Maybe I think it was $1,000. It's about 500 now, and become life members.
Right.
So that was one thing that really, that I felt was a contribution. to the fraternity.
Absolutely.
Now, back to being DR, I think that probably there are a lot of little things that I did, but there were some big things. The little ones was we used to have these yellow plastic bags. You know, when you went to a district meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, matter of fact, all of the districts had those things. They were terrible looking, and once you left the district, you threw them in the garbage
Right. Okay.
because you couldn't use them for anything. You know.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so we switched the bags. Say, let's have a bag or that somebody can use,
Right.
after the district meeting. Um,
Well, I thank you for that.
yeah, it was just terrible. They were cheap looking, and like I said, useless.
Right.
Matter of fact, when I went up to pick out a bag, my KRS was in Harrisburg, and he had all of them from all of the conferences and conclaves
Right.
unopened. So that's when we decided to move. The other thing was that when I was DR, I got a chance to charter chapters at majority schools. Okay, Salisbury, Frostburg, Rutgers, Rutgers Camden, Seton Hall, Towson, Indiana, Pennsylvania,
Wow.
all of Millersville, all those
Right.
schools.
So all that is under your umbrella. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The contribution as DR, the current voting system, I actually put that together.
Okay.
Because before every chapter had 2 votes, and you had 2 votes by one person if it was more than 500 miles.
Right.
And that wasn't really fair to the large chapters.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and at that time we had quite a few large chapters: Pi Omega, Mu Omega, Kappa Omega, and Kappa Omicron in New York. I mean, they were huge chapters, and especially for those days. Okay.
Right.
So that was the contribution I think I made as far as the fraternity is concerned. But again, it was the people I met is the most important thing. It's not about the programs. We do so much, the mentoring programs and scholarship programs and talent programs. But it's the friendships that you develop over the years.
Right.
Is more valuable. I mean, it's a lifetime thing. I mean, it's not a day that I don't have any involvement with Omega, even when I'm on vacation.
Right.
I mean, something. If it's not physical, it's mental.
Right.
I mean, so.
Well, what do you think it is that sets Omega apart? Like I know just as you have friends who are in other organizations, whether they're Divine Nine or white organizations, fraternal organizations, what in your opinion makes the Omega Psi Phi brothers different? Why do we have that connection and that wanting to be around each other where others don't seem to have it as much or as enthusiastically as we do?
Yeah. I often think about that and try to decide what makes Omega different. It's just a kind of a bond that we have. I was reading an article my brother sent me, and it talked about the mottos of all of the organizations. Okay. And they all talk about service. They all talk about commitment to mankind and everything else. We're the only one where our motto talks about friendship. Right. Rather than talking about, as my brother often says, it's not what we do, but who we are.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference. And I there's something about uh, Omega that sets us apart because, we seem to be able to be very well accomplished, always, on the forefront of leadership, and when you look at A. Philip Randolph and people like Robert Weaver and Charles Drew and Sterling Brown and Benjamin Mays, who they said was probably the greatest college president of all times. That's what Omega's all about. But yet, in the same sense, we have a lot of fun.
Yes,
We
we
enjoy
do.
being together. This is like, when Charles Drew was in Montreal and McGill, I don't know if he was doing his residency or what, but the Grand Bosses was supposed to come up there, and for some reason he didn't make it.
Okay.
And Charlie Drew sent him a letter and said, you missed out on a lot of fun up here in Montreal. And I think he said we had some damn lids or whatever. So I mean, it's the thing of being that you can be successful and accomplished, but yet enjoy being together.
Right.
I don't care if it's a picnic, uh, uh, a smoke party, a cigar party, when I was in New York, we used to have a tennis party,
Okay.
tennis disco party. So no matter, we always seem to be creative,
Right.
Yeah.
Any excuse to get together and hang out.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking, and enjoy it. I mean,
Yes,
really
sir.
sincerely enjoy doing what we do.
Yes, sir.
So that's the beauty of it. And to me, brotherhood is the ability to want to do to make the other's life better.
Mm.
And I kind of grew up in a family where in my entire life I never had a harsh word with any of my brothers.
Right.
And I can say that about the frat. I've never had a harsh word. I mean, I've had disagreements. I
Right.
mean, we're not gonna always disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, agree rather.
Right.
But we don't have to be
Enemies. Right.
yeah.
Right.
And and it was never any jealousy. When one brother did well,
All did.
we all felt good about it.
Right.
And I think that's the real difference. I can't speak for the Kappas. My dad was a Sigma.
Okay.
Founded 2 chapters in Sigma.
Wow.
I couldn't be a Sigma.
Right.
My brother went to Morehouse on a Sigma scholarship. He couldn't be a Sigma.
Right. I'm sure your dad was thrilled about all of that.
Well, you know what he said to me? He said there's 2 things a man has to make a decision about on his own in life.
Okay.
The woman he's going to be with and the fraternity that he pledges.
Okay. Okay.
And I mean, he was a good Sigma, never
Right.
been unfinancial. Like I said, founded the chapter at Tennessee State, founded the chapter, graduate chapter in Miami, never been unfinancial. And I guess I felt this way. If my dad could never be unfinancial in Sigma, I
Right.
damn sure can't be unfinancial in Omega.
Right. Right.
You understand
Right.
what I'm saying? So, but it has just been a wonderful experience. And like I said, I could never give back. And it has been an influence on me, but it's also been an influence on my children.
Okay.
Whenever my daughter speaks, either one of them, and there's Omegas in the audience, they always recognize them. My Omega uncles,
Right.
You know, she spoke on Martha's Vineyard with Presley and the guy that ran for governor in New York, I mean, in Florida.
Hmm.
But, you know, the first thing she said before she started speaking was, you know, I want to recognize my Omega uncles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's been an experience for them because when they grew up, that's all they knew,
Right.
you know, and it was more important to them because in those days, conclaves were family fraternal events. In other words, people brought their families and, you know, so they remember that more.
Got you.
Okay. The other thing was when I was blessed to have the opportunity to be chairman of the board of Mega Life Membership Foundation.
Okay.
Okay. That was a good experience because, again, it expanded my closeness of friendships with people.
Right.
And, you know, it was how we started to grow the organization and get a working relationship back with the fraternity like it was supposed to be. There was
Right.
a rift between life membership and the fraternity for many years.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And,
Okay.
you know, one wanted to control the other's money and, you know,
Right.
and that's not the way it was supposed to be. And so now it's a very working relationship and that's the way it should be.
Absolutely. Wow.
And, then I'm involved in a group called Progressive Omega. Okay.
Okay.
And it's really an investment partnership uh, of Omegas from all over the country. Not many of us, about 14 now. And we've been together for almost 45 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
And we've been to 80 different places, from Cuba to Florida to California to Montreal to Toronto, uh, 80 different locations.
Wow.
Yeah. And uh, in the beginning, we were more interested in making money. I mean,
Okay.
you know, now we're making money, but that's not the primary
Right.
objective of the organization.
Okay.
Is to enjoy each other, you know,
Wow.
and you know, we're making money because the guy who manages the portfolio has done a super job. You know, we got Microsoft,
Gotcha.
Zoom, and we
Okay.
caught them. You know, we caught them
Caught him
on
early.
early.
Right.
Yeah, and most of those stocks are triple. But again, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
If we lost it all tomorrow,
It
it
still will be
wouldn't matter.
worth it. Right.
Yeah, you know,
Right.
because of the friendship. We took our kids to Disney World in Edmonton,
Okay.
just the fathers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
just the
That must have
fathers.
been an awesome experience for the
Oh,
kids and you guys. Yeah.
yes, it was tremendous. We had a fish fry one night, we had a barbecue one night, and you know, and uh, and you know, they got a chance to see their fathers taking care of the whole thing. The only thing I couldn't do was the hair. I mean, I could, you know, I can cook. But there was one girl who was older, and she took care of that situation for me.
Okay.
But, and then we took them to Edmonton, which is the largest mall in the world.
Right.
They have an amusement park on one end and a water park on the other end.
Wow.
And so the kids, you know, they just enjoy it. And they still talk about it. I mean, my kids are 43 and 41 years old, and they still talk about those trips
Right.
with their fathers.
It definitely seems like you've gotten the most out of Omega and you've given a ton to Omega because I can speak from personal experience. And I guess I've known you, what, maybe 6 years, 7 years, but I know you've always opened your home to the brothers of Psi Iota there in Dover, Delaware. It's just a great chance for us to get under your knee, you know what I mean, and to learn what this fraternity really is about from someone who's given so much and received so much from fraternity. And I just want to thank you for that, you know, and
Yeah.
I want to give you the last word. Like if you had anything you wanted to say to the brothers or sum up your experience, what would that be?
Well, I just want to, thank the brothers uh, for their brotherhood and their friendship. You know, it feels funny for me because most of my life in Omega, I was always the youngest.
Okay.
You understand? Youngest DR, youngest chairman, and it
Right.
feels funny when people, you know, uh, look at me and now I'm the oldest or an older, you
Well,
know.
you have a young man spirit, Brother Greer. I will say that.
Like take for instance, when I first came to Wilmington, Luke Chappell and I, we were the young guys in New
Wow.
Epsilon.
Wow.
We were the
Wow.
young guys. I mean, Woody Wilson and Pat Walker, who was the dean, and Cheney, and you know, and you know, it feels funny, but
Right.
I appreciate the many calls that I get just from brothers saying, Brother Greer, are you okay? What can we do?
Right.
And it's the road that's reversed from where it used to be. I used to call it Woody Wilson, said, Brother Wilson, is there anything I can do for you?
Right.
Uh, you know, because like I said, I was always the youngest brother. When we went to the Final Four, I was driving these older guys. And but it's a pleasure. Uh, my mother used to always say to me, whatever you have has no value unless you can share it with the people you're closest to.
Right. Right.
So, you know, my home has no value if I can't share it.
Right.
My time has no value unless I can share it. You know, my soul has no value unless I can share it.
Wow.
And I think that that's what Omega has done for me. I mean, it's given me the opportunity to receive so much. You know, it has made me successful in my job, with my kids. You know, my children. Like whenever there comes to a question about education, even their friends, they call me up and say, Brother Greer, or Greer, Mr. Greer, you know, uh, you know, what should I do? Where should I go? You know what I mean? Because I studied it. When my kids were getting ready to go to college, I took them on trips and, visiting universities and colleges, and, education was very important in my family. My
Right.
grandfather got a degree in 1888.
Wow.
And
Okay.
he was the first person in his family born out of slavery. And so, I come from a line of educators. And so it's very important. Now I'm going through the same thing with my granddaughter.
Right.
She said, Grandpa, this is my 5 schools that I'm looking at. I'm looking at Harvard, I'm looking at Columbia, I'm looking at Penn, I'm looking at Duke, I'm looking at Stanford. That's my first 5, and then
Right.
there's the other 5, MIT. And so, or, what courses are going to be necessary. She's a junior taking 4 AP courses,
Wow.
you
Wow.
know,
Mm-hmm.
Spanish AP, chemistry AP, calculus AP, and computer science AP. And then she's a soccer goalie,
Okay.
on top of that. So, but, I did the same thing with my girls,
Right.
Um, there's one question that you had too, when you're talking about legacies. Um, the sororities do a much better job with legacies.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. In other words, it's almost automatic when a woman who's an AKA has a daughter.
Right.
You know, we don't do a good job at that.
Okay.
Now you have sons, right?
Yes, 2 boys.
2 boys. It should be automatic. You know, you understand what I'm
Okay.
saying?
No, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't do a good job at that.
Well, do you think that goes back to our culture? I know I've heard for years that Omega seeks no man. So does that kind of fall in line with that way of thinking?
Yeah, I guess, but
I don't know
in
if
the
that's the
same
right way to
sense,
think. You know,
well, what else have your boys seen? They
well,
see you.
for the
You
most part,
understand what
just
I'm
the
saying?
bros. Yeah,
Yeah, they see you, and there have been instances where people that are legacies, you know, they're frowned upon in the organization, coming in the organization.
right,
Where if a woman's an AKA, she has a daughter, they don't even vote on them. It's automatic they go on them.
right, right. Yeah,
And it should be the same thing because the same lifestyle that you have, the same values that you have, I'm sure are the same values your sons have.
right, right.
So why should they be harassed or chastised because their father's an Omega?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, do you think that's something that the brotherhood is ready to embrace, or do we have a way to go there?
We probably have a way to go. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't see it.
right.
Uh, you know, I had a nephew. He was at Morehouse for 4 years, and both of his uncles were accused. His dad was accused, and they were suspended for 4 years.
Right, right,
So he didn't even have the opportunity to pledge.
right,
My son-in-law is a Kappa who went to
right.
school in Boston. Believe me, during the time I was there, he would have never been a Kappa.
Okay,
You
okay.
understand what I'm saying?
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, I got you.
But yeah, that's the only thing I really sometimes uh, regret in the fraternity. Well, I regret that I don't have any sons to be Omegas.
Right,
But my family are Omegas on both sides.
right,
I mean, my mother's cousins, my father's cousins, nephews. Uh, I don't know if you remember the boy that died in an aneurysm, and he was made posthumously. He's a football player at Georgia Tech.
yes, absolutely. What was that last year?
Last year, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
His grandfather, no, his great grandfather, and my uncle was my uncle.
Okay, wow.
So, and then I got another cousin in Tennessee. That's on my father's side. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, father was an Omega. Her husband was an Omega. Her son-in-law was an Omega. Her son's an Omega. Her brother-in-laws are Omegas, and she died on November 17.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Brother Greer, I just want to thank you once again for taking some time and you're letting us pick your brain a little bit. This is really, I know the Achievement Week committee for Psi Iota, they wanted to get out and get to some brothers who have experience in fraternity. And you were one of the first names that popped up. So I'm just really glad that I've had this honor to get this recorded. We talk and I know how you feel about Omega and what it means to you, but I'm just glad we are able to capture it so that this can go on to the brothers in Gamma chapter, Psi Iota, second district, all over, so they can really get a good idea of what type of man you are and what your experience has been in Omega.
Thank you, and just I just want to thank all the brothers. Psi Iota is like my adopted chapter. I feel like
Absolutely.
I feel like an adopted son, but I mean, and just a great bunch of guys. I'm so proud of you. And when they had the district meeting here in Dover,
Yes,
I mean, there was nothing but compliments. I didn't hear
yes,
one single complaint. It was just everybody said it was one of the best district meetings. that they had ever had.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just a good bunch of guys. And it's great the way you all treat the older brothers.
Right.
You know, I mean, just it's what Omega's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What Omega's supposed to be. And I just feel blessed, man. That's all I can say.
Well, we are definitely blessed to have you, Brother Greer, for sure.
All right. And
All right.
thanks a lot.
Hey,
Okay,
thank
I
you,
hope
Brother
I've
Greer.
answered your questions.
Oh, you did. We got into some good conversation. I enjoyed it.
All right. Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
My pleasure.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.